This is the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast with Greg Smith and Jay Foreman. Tell it to me straight up.
Hello. Welcome into the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast, proudly part of the Hurrdat Varsity Network. I am Greg Smith, your donut-loving, Adidas-wearing friend.
I'm Jay Foreman. I am your chitlin'-eating, fun-loving, almost football season co-host.
It's a beautiful day. Like I was trying to see.
A little chilly, but it's good though.
It could be 3 degrees and snowing, and I would be in a good mood today.
Yeah,
I'm a champion fan.
Right, I hear you. I mean, I will say this. I've been a Lakers fan my whole life. You know, to be honest with you, and obviously everybody was a Bulls fan when Jordan was running. My whole family. I was thinking about last night the Lakers and how long I've watched Laker basketball. I remember being with my mom and my aunt, and my real name or whatever you want to call it is Jamal. My mom named me after Jamal Wilkes because she had a crush on him. And when he played on the Lakers. Yeah. And I remember back when it was Michael Cooper. He was one of my favorite players that played for the Lakers. And they were playing the Celtics, and I was thinking about it. And then I was watching, obviously, LeBron last night. So it was a good night to see him do it. I will say this: I'm not going to sit up there and think it was a foregone conclusion, especially after the last game and the way that the Miami Heat played. But the Lakers, I think, finally came out, and they that was the best they probably played, in my opinion. The best 3 quarters or 2.5 quarters that they've played all year.
Yeah, that second quarter was dominant defensively, especially. And it's funny. I will early on in the pod here put myself on blast, peel the curtain back, because you said you didn't think it was a foregone conclusion. You gonna tell the people how mad at me you were before Game 5 when you called me and I was getting a victory cigar before Game 5, and you were mad at me?
Yeah, I told you, don't ever count your chickens before they hatch. You thought it was over. Oh, they got the mom, but listen, that's not the way professional sports go, man. You just can't do that.
It was supposed to be like that. The storybook ending was they were going to wear the mama jerseys. I had my cigar. I had my good liquor ready. We were good to go.
And they had brought out the trophy.
They had the trophy in the Louis Vuitton case.
Yeah, I changed up my whole daily routine. I went back to the routine I had in Game 4. I was hot at you for a little bit. I kept this conversation short with you. I don't even think I called you for a day. I was like, man, you done messed up the whole mojo, but it happened at the right time. And so I'm glad that they won. It was an interesting season. You got to give kudos to the NBA and the players and the owners and the players. Somehow a major sports league, they can work together for the betterment of the whole game, and it was a lot of really good basketball. It was more of a AAU type basketball, but it was actually pure basketball in the sense that the crowd was out of it, so they had to show up and play. Yeah. And then everybody was obviously safe, which was obviously at the forefront. But it was really exciting, and I think it was really good for the NBA, even though obviously they started to uptick and kind of take a little bit away from the NFL over the last say 4 or 5 years. It was good for them to kind of be the only show in town. The NFL didn't have any preseason games, and they just kind of showed up and played. And I think they ended at the right time. Gives them a lot of momentum going into the offseason, whenever the season will start next year for them. But I'm happy for all the Lakers. LeBron James, Rondo. Rondo is weird. It's
so strange to see celebrating Rajon Rondo as a Laker champion. It's just weird.
He needs to be a hired gun. Like how the Patriots always pick up that veteran. Give it up to Sasha for the Patriot. Well, she's a true Patriot fan because she says
she's sticking with it.
She's sticking with him. But it's like the Patriots always pick up that veteran for that last run before they win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's what Rondo needs to be. Give me a month or 2 to get in basketball shape, and I'm gonna be the player that I'm supposed to be when he was drafted, coming out of Kentucky. And that leadership that he has. The one thing people don't realize, even last year, when they were playing, and I remember, I think it was Christmas Day, and that's when LeBron, pulled his groin, and how they were destroying the Warriors. Mm-hmm. The thing that people don't understand, like if you look at a Chris Paul or a Rondo versus like a Trae Young or like say like a, a younger point guard. If you watch how Rondo controls the tempo and controls the whole, basically he controls the whole game. He knows when to fast break, when to pull it out. If they're struggling a little bit, he knows what set to get him in. He knows how to. He actually is a better offensive threat than people give him credit
when
for.
He decides to
when
do
he
it,
decides to.
And he did it last night as well. You know?
Right. He can go to the hoop. He can go both ways. He can create, and he's a big. If you look at his body type, he's actually he has really long arms and really broad shoulders. So what he really does really, really well when he goes in there and he goes against a point guard, say that maybe is a couple inch taller than him, he lessens that by getting into their body. But I was really impressed by him. One, from his leadership on while he was playing, but then also there's a story that he came directly to LeBron James and said, last year your body language was horrible.
I thought that was very important. Yeah. And you have to have a level of respect from LeBron to be able to tell him that.
And they battled.
Yeah.
So, and they the Celtics against the Heat, it was serious. But that lets you know how much respect LeBron had for Rondo. One, for the Lakers to bring him in, right? Because Lakers aren't going to bring anybody in that, LeBron didn't have respect for.
Yeah, he didn't give the ultimate approval.
He didn't give the head nod to, right?
Right.
So it all worked out, and you got to think of even somebody like Jared Dudley. He gives guys like me and you.
He has a role too,
right?
Role.
Yeah,
veteran presence. You need a guy that's not really going to play.
He ain't going to play.
He played as much as we did,
right?
But he got a role.
Hey, listen here. That made me want to think about getting in the gym and shooting threes. Because he's eating as many donuts as we have. But you know what he was probably doing? He was probably doing a lot of coaching of the younger guys, like the Cooks, Giannis's brother, some other guys that we probably don't even know. Probably had to make sure Deion Waiters was
coming to
practice, not inebriated. Good on him. He was getting he was showing up playing with, I call it house money. He was either getting a championship from being a part of the Heat or the Lakers. But I'm pretty sure he'll take the one from the Lakers because of somebody gave him a bad a bad gummy.
Gave him a bad strain.
Bad strain of gummy on that private jet that he was on.
That's one of the great stories ever. Now, if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. First of all, second, every week we kind of go through and we do a segment to start off the show called Coach Speak, where we read off a quote and we let you know what somebody said. It doesn't have to necessarily be a coach, and we tell you what they mean, it really meant, and react to that.
Coach Speak to Real Talk.
This week, it comes courtesy of the man we were kind of talking about, and speaking of respect, the man, the myth, the legend, LeBron James. He said after last night's game, quote, "We just want our respect. Coach Vogel wants his respect. Rob wants his respect. The organization and Laker Nation wants their respect too. And I want my damn respect too."
Yeah.
What did he mean by that? Because that's an interesting statement to say right after you win your fourth championship, your fourth finals MVP. You are universally considered at least the second best player in the history of the game. Right. What did he mean by that? Because he went there right away.
Well, I mean, it was all inclusive, right? Because you got to think Rob Pelinka wasn't really respected because everybody felt like he was Kobe's boy.
They thought, remember back, to jump in on you, back when during the summer before, it was actually after they pulled off the Anthony Davis trade, where people were talking about Rob Pelinka being a bozo and he didn't know the rules because he cost them money. Remember that they were talking about he didn't know rules.
He didn't know the rules, and it was remember they were saying that he was like the backdoor snitch telling Jeannie Buss that Magic Johnson wasn't in the office, and then he was mainly supposedly the big reason why Magic left. Right?
Yeah, because Magic went on First Take and said he was a backstabber.
He was a backstabber. I wouldn't trust him. X, Y, and Z. So he didn't have respect, right? And then people were thinking like, well, he was just hooking Kobe up, those last few years, and then Kobe got him a job with the Lakers because he went from an agent.
Yeah.
First of all, he played with the Fab Five at Michigan. Yep. Didn't really, obviously play professionally. Became an agent. Came extremely tight with Kobe. Yeah. And then Kobe got him the job. So he didn't have respect. The Lakers have been, you go from, if you want a good analogy, it's no different than Nebraska in the 90s, right? Or, you think about the 80s and the 90s or whenever the Lakers, obviously were winning. Same with Nebraska. and then be bottom feeders now, you lost a lot of respect. People are looking at you. And the reason why people lost respect or like to dig on the Lakers is because they were so good for so long and so dominant for so long, and they were so high profile, right?
Yeah, you and obnoxious about it. I'll take that.
And that's fine.
And that's fine,
right? And same thing with Nebraska. When we go play, Meatloaf State, we're bringing 70,000 people and overtaking your stadium. But now we're not. So people were, kicking them while they're down. So you lost respect there. And then I think the thing with LeBron is, and me and you talked about it, there's a lot of people out there know, and the same thing happened when people have, I call revisionist history. When Jordan was kind of, going from, say, like a top 10 player to legitimate top 5 player, as he was working up to being the best of all time when he was playing, you heard people talking about Larry Bird, Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then they had the, Bill Russell with all his championships and kind of always knocking them down. Right. And it's no different when LeBron, except for now there's social media and so many outlets. Everybody has a voice and an opinion. So LeBron's in the same position as Jordan is, or Jordan was. And the only thing that they can say, the differential between LeBron and Jordan, is the 6-0 in the championships, and LeBron has 4. LeBron's statement meant, what I'm doing now is no different. So you need to give me the same respect because I'm doing it in different situations under harder circumstances, what people don't really understand. Mm-hmm. LeBron's path to championships is through more Hall of Fame players than Jordan ever had. And people don't understand that. When he beat the Spurs, you had 4 Hall of Fame players. And a Hall of Fame close.
When they played the Warriors, and see, this is the thing that drives me nuts about what was 3-6, and now it'll just be 4-6. That people will just roll on to that and say that, right? But if you look at those 6, so we talked that Spurs was that 2014. I'm gonna get my years messed up. Was that 2014 with that great Spurs team, and they were a great team. You lose a couple to those Warriors teams that had 4 All-Stars, and then were coached by Steve Kerr.
Well, they have Hall of Fame, not All-Star.
But yeah, and it's not even just like
we're not like
that's true.
J.R. Ryder made a All-Star game. That's no different than me and you going out there and making all this. Okay, so I'm talking about Hall of Fame players. Yeah. Okay, not just guys that I mean, I was always a Christian Laettner fan from college. He made 2 All-Star teams. So we're not talking just making an All-Star. We're talking about Hall of Fame players. The Warriors, 4 Hall of Fame players. Spurs, Hall of Fame players. So who he's getting beat by or who he had to beat to get there is in a lot of ways harder than what Jordan had to go through.
And I agree, but the one thing that I think dings LeBron on that is really was it 2011, the one against Dallas. Yeah, because that one is the outlier, right? When we talk about LeBron, it's the one that doesn't make any sense if you look at the rest of his career, because even in those ones that he lost, like against the Warriors, what's the one year that they lost to the Warriors, he was the best player. He averaged a triple-double, and there were people that voted for him for MVP even though they lost. He's always been bankable, dependable. Those are the numbers that he's going to give you, right? And so I think that it was like that Dallas series really messed people up because it just doesn't make any sense.
It was that one game where he looked like he refused to shoot.
Yeah. He looked timid for a lot of the series.
And he was confused, I would say that. But then also you got to think with Rick Carlisle being the coach, who's a Popovich disciple, obviously I bet you he called in Popovich on how to stop him. And at that point in time, LeBron's mental game wasn't nearly where it needed to be, and he was trying to be something that he wasn't. Remember, he was trying to be the villain. He was trying to be and that's not
the black mask.
Yeah, and that wasn't his personality, and so it was one of those things, a learning process. And Jordan went through the same thing. The only thing is Jordan went through those things in the first and second round,
or in the Eastern Conference Finals,
Eastern Conference Finals, where he couldn't hit a shot. He kept shooting. He didn't pass. It's no different than when LeBron didn't score. Jordan was trying to score but didn't. So at the end of the day, they both weren't scoring, and their teams lost. And so people always, in my opinion, have revisionist history. LeBron is trying to he's definitely motivated by it, but then also he's letting people know that he's heard it, and he thanked them in a way. Because when you hear somebody talk about respect, LeBron shouldn't be at the point where he's like, you should be respecting me. Yeah, he's done as much or for the game and for himself. I mean, being 35 years old and averaging a triple-double in the NBA Finals at 35 years old with a stoppage of, 3 months during the season is unheard of.
Like, it's crazy, but and it's funny you say it because he should be beyond the point of like needing quote unquote respect. But you know the immediate thing I thought about when he said that about I want my damn respect too. Remember after last year's playoff run, all of a sudden Kawhi Leonard is now the best player in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's gone because he went on a nice run during that playoffs last year for the Raptors to lead them to a championship. And then LeBron and AD chased him to try to get him to come to LA and form their own super team. He spurned them, right? And while the whole time was plotting with way off P. See how that worked out for you, chump. So because and then Giannis got elevated over LeBron as well, and then he won that MVP. And I still think that LeBron was right in what he actually said about the MVP. He did not actually say, when he said he was mad about that, he didn't say, "Oh, I should have won it." He said, "I should have got some more votes." Like I just shouldn't have. And I thought that's fair. And so I think that he has heard all of the talk and the noise, even though everyone always says, "Oh, I don't listen to that stuff." He does. He heard all of the noise of people being elevated above him and saying that he was in the twilight, and he said, "No, I'm really not." And I'm gonna prove it right now.
Hold on, I don't mean to step in there, but we missed one. No,
what do we miss?
They were trying to put KD over him first, and I will say this: if KD's mind ever got 100% right, that's the only player that has the skill set offensively to match LeBron.
Yeah, because there's nothing that you
can't stop a 7-footer shoot with him. His pull-up jumper.
No,
you might as well just get it going on running down the court.
Yeah, and he's quick enough to get around you, but can just shoot over you if he wants to.
And he improved his defense too. But how he comes back off that Achilles injury, which I think he'll be fine. It'll be interesting to see how his game, changes or stays the same.
And then how he has to deal with Kyrie. That'll be the X factor with the Nade boys, but we'll see how that goes.
Everywhere he's been, he's
flamed out. Blew up the team. But LeBron has been just the model of consistency, and it's weird that it's weird, but like it defies logic that at 35 years old, he would still be doing this. Because if you look back at the 2016 finals, when he won that finals with the Cavs, he was 29 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 49% field goal, 37-3, right? It's a great series. That was a great series, an all-time. This series that just ended last night, he was 29 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, but shot 58% from field goal and 39 from three. He improved. He's better 4 years later than he was, and that's now after an injury, right? Like, I don't even know what to, like, how do you even quantify, like, and is there another comparison of somebody that just continued that level of greatness for that long as it goes along? Because
in the NBA, no. In the NBA, no. At that, what he's doing right now is unheard of, and he's fighting against himself because he's been so great, not good, great for so long. That it's like the only comparable I can think of is like Aaron Rodgers last year. Going 28 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. They're like, oh, that was a horrible season.
I loved his quote recently. Did you see it where he was like, down years for me are career years for other quarterbacks.
Exactly, and
which is true.
And that's the same thing with LeBron. Or like when like the few times that they've always questioned Tom Brady and from playing football, there's other factors if his interceptions went from like 7 to 12, right? It might have been tip balls or or just bad routes and stuff like that as they're trying to work through the minutia of new players inside the Patriots organization. Now he's with Tampa. So if there's anybody that's probably had that much sustained level of excellence, I would probably say Tom Brady. You might have used to being able to say Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning his last couple of years was just kind of not to lose the game. He was more of a, keep him out of trouble. The defense was real dominant. Tom Brady is when he rolls into the office at Bucks place, or when he goes up to the stadium to play on Sundays, is still a dominant player, and they dominate more now with their brain. Versus obviously with their physical capabilities. I don't think Tom Brady's ever been like physically imposing, but with LeBron, He's in such good shape. His game is continued to evolve. And you got to think, when he came in the league at like 18, 19 years old, he's pretty much was street balling.
Mm-hmm. Just pure athleticism.
And so
getting by
his first 6-7 years in the league, he's just learning how to play NBA basketball and still averaging, whatever it was, 24, 26 points. Now he knows how to prepare, how to, go against any defense, how to make everybody else better, which makes him better and makes him actually more efficient. Mm-hmm. So when I watched him last night, I watched when he would take the ball up, who was in the game, who he trusted to control. And there would be time that he was actually off outside the 3-point line on the opposite side of the court. He was just sitting there like a coach watching them run. And then the best play is when he gave the ball to Caruso. They kind of, almost double teamed or drifted to him. Then he went back door and slammed it. Mm-hmm. What that lets you know is that was set up 2 or 3 plays before by him and Caruso. And it didn't even have to be a play call. It was just that just playing basketball. So that's where LeBron has become that much better of a player versus, like you saw all the pundits, right? When the game before, he gave Danny Green the 3-point shot wide open. Oh, he has to shoot that. He has to shoot that. Well, if you're comparing him to Jordan won 2 championships because Paxson and Kerr in 2 different years made the same play, actually hit threes with guys closer in their proximity. That 3-pointer is like the equivalent of a free throw to a very, very good high school or college player.
Right.
And he front rimmed it. And so, LeBron is always going to be able to dominate because he's not a selfish player, right? And so what I mean by that is LeBron he'll leave the stadium if he has 18 points. Well, there's been times he's had 12 points. 8 rebounds, a couple steals, and probably if he could play 24 minutes, he'll be fine. And AD scores 40.
Right.
Whereas some other players, like Kyrie, they won't sleep at night unless they
James Harden,
unless they get 30 shots up.
Right.
Something's wrong. And so you ask how he's able to do it. He's able to do it because he is somehow matured and somehow somebody's gotten into his head to really say, you know what, a better you is a better team. And the more that you give away, you'll get back in return. Mm-hmm. And kids these days just don't think like that.
And it's the mental. One of the things that I'm really curious about, I don't know if I've ever seen this, but I just always assume that they'll working on some sort of documentary about him, and they'll release this kind of like The Last Dance at some point.
My wife asked me about that because of the Jordan,
and it'll be really interesting. One of the things that I will be most interested to find out about LeBron and the whole thing, in particular this year and all of the things that they had to go through as a team, both on and off the floor, dealing with the pandemic, the death of Kobe Bryant, all of the stuff of like just kind of building a new team, like resurrecting a proud franchise, all of that. I want to know about the mental toll of all of that, because that that's not easy. Like we talk about the physical portion of it so much, and that gets so much attention. But just how difficult mentally this all has to be, and in particular for him being a guy that is just 10 finals, to be there year in and year out. And I was thinking about this, and it is not disrespect to Jimmy Butler, all respect to those guys from the Heat. But yesterday, as you're watching the game, and they're talking about Jimmy Butler being gassed, and he had to carry the team and all that. And I kind of chuckled to myself like I just did, and thought, well, that's actually been LeBron James for like the last 12 years.
Right. He's playing.
Like it's been like what Jimmy Butler had to do is basically what LeBron has been doing for years and years now.
It was a big deal when the Lakers didn't make the playoffs and LeBron was on the team when he was actually on injured reserve.
Right. Even though they were the 4 seed when he was healthy.
Right.
Like with a much worse team last year.
And so that's the funny thing about it. But when you think about like LeBron and you just compare Jimmy Butler, and I wonder how many more games, like seasons he's played based on minutes and playoff games.
So I saw a thing where just compared to Jordan, LeBron has played exactly 81 more playoff games than Michael Jordan played. So he's played a season's worth of playoff games more than Michael.
Right.
Which is since considering he won 6 championships, they played deep, even though they had the those 5-game series, which I actually wish they would go back to.
Me
They
too.
just made it more fun in the beginning, and you can get some of those over quicker that are going to be sweeps anyway. But that's staggering. Like you think about throw in the Olympics. Like he's played in a couple of Olympics, right? Yeah. So it's a lot of extra mileage on those tires.
And you think we go back to mentally. Which is huge. Obviously, mental health is obviously taking on a whole nother level. Even back like when you think with Kevin Love, when he was with the Cavaliers, it was kind of like the first big one to jump out there. But just mentally, just imagine, when COVID and Corona hit. I know in Lincoln, they had the curfew, obviously for obviously for different reasons, but you were afraid to go outside of your house. You're looking at the same 4 walls. Now imagine being away from your family, and then you had to travel from California or wherever you're coming down to Orlando. Kind of like in the first 2 or 3 weeks, they were giving you different type of food just based on if you were coming up positive or not. Right. Then once you kind of pass 2 tests, then you kind of get the good food, and then it's like an AAU tournament. You go through this like regular season. Then you go to the playoffs. Okay, 2 teams are gone. There goes my boys. They're gone. Right. So mentally, that gives you kind of that wears on you as well. And then to be there and the focus, I'd be more interested to see what was going on like in the offices and how they were able to get the team motivated, focused during this time, because that itself would be a bestseller on how to team build. Mental health, because when you think about it, is obviously with the death of Kobe, right? On top of Corona and all this other stuff, then to sit up there, now you got to go back to work, and then Kobe was so iconic and was slowly but surely becoming even more of an icon.
Yeah, and coming back around the organization a lot more. Remember, you got the very now famous video of him dapping up LeBron after a big play at Staples,
and they were starting to forge. Because I think Kobe, let's be honest, Kobe probably had a little bit of angst when LeBron came to kind of take away from his.
Yeah, he was a little reluctant to throw his arms around him, which was his personality. But they had still they had a friendship, right? Yeah. And Kobe was like still wanting to get his just due. So maybe if they had a 10-year grace period where they kind of it would have been a little bit
easier. But they started to really come together. And Kobe, I think, felt good that LeBron was there for the right reasons. And LeBron showed him by obviously moving out there. And they were kind of still doing the same thing. LeBron's in, Space Jam, and Kobe was doing his thing. And then for those guys that take the court with that team, and if you talk about mental focus and mental motivation, we were just talking about it on the way up here. Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Just take those 2. Yep. JaVale McGee is like used to be a walking
Shackton
a fool. And then you had
the
Dwight Howard. You never knew what type of Dwight you were going to get coming in there and what type of problem. And he had already been there and blew up the Lakers, right?
Yeah.
We're just talking about Kobe. Kobe was like, hey, dude, you got to get up out of here.
Call him Saul.
So to come back and resurrect yourself, that takes some mental toughness, mental awareness. And then it had to be part of LeBron helping the whole organization. And then with LeBron, obviously a lot of pressure on him, a lot of pressure on AD. Can you really play? Are you tough enough?
Yeah. Can you be the guy in a big moment?
And can you play physical? Because it's still AD is a top 5 player, bar none, gets 0 calls. Me and you text all the time. 0 calls.
I was trying to figure it out last night. How does he not, the same exact thing will happen on the other end, and he will get called for a foul. And it happened last night. And then it'll happen to him, and he won't get the call. It's a weird thing. And I know people don't like to think, I guess, that superstar calls and all of that exist. But it does. Yeah. And he does not get them.
He doesn't get them
at all.
How's Bam Adebayo getting them before him?
Right. And it's just a weird thing. And to me, it was that was one of the kind of weird subplots of the series, is that people were mad that the Lakers were complaining about fouls. And I don't always love it, to be honest, especially when I think sometimes it takes away from them getting back into plays. That bothers me. I'm yelling at the TV too about that. But at the same time, like there were a lot of questionable calls.
Right.
Like it was just a lot of weird stuff where they don't get a lot of calls. We went on that stretch where Jimmy Butler was shooting more free throws than the entire Laker team.
Right.
Like it was just strange that how that went. But that again, though, to me goes to what we were talking about, which kind of the mental focus of the team. And you were saying like how were they able to do this? I think that one of the things that got brought up earlier in the season, and it was kind of a punchline at first. Remember, people were talking about the Lakers kept talking about how tight they were and their team chemistry and how well they got along. And people were like, "Oh, that won't really matter. Like, you still got to have ballers to go out there and play.
Sure.
When they match up against XYZ team, the chemistry is not going to get them a win there." But nobody could have foreseen all of the different things that they would have had to go through. And I think that chemistry actually kept them together and got them even closer as a unit to where they then blocked out the noise. And again, that I think was started by really two people, the person we've been talking mostly about, LeBron James, but also Frank Vogel. He deserves a lot of credit for this too, because we reference Magic Johnson going on to First Take and calling Rob Pelinka a backstabber. Do you know what also happened that same day? That was the day that Frank Vogel was hired.
Yeah, it was.
Like, that was all in the same day, but there was another very important thing that happened on that day. LeBron James actually came to the press conference and he stood in the back. He didn't say anything. He didn't tweet. He didn't put out TikTok. He didn't do anything. He just stood back there and hung out, basically giving his stamp of approval to Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel got up there in that very first press conference and said, "We're going to be a defensive-minded team. That's going to be our identity." And then you see what you saw last night, the culmination of that championship, which was based on their defense and them all kind of buying in and having that great team chemistry. I think that it's a great story, and it would be a cool story even if I was not adorned in purple and gold right now. And I think that it gets lost a little bit because there is a lot of Laker hate out there. I totally get it. I'm fine with it. I'm willing to take it. I've been taking it for 10 years. But y'all gonna get these jokes now that we got this championship back. But it's also funny too, because I'm like, man, it's been a long 10 years, but this is the 6th championship I've seen in my lifetime. Sasha just rolled her eyes down the hallway at me, even though, I got the Patriots gear on over there. But it's the 6th championship I've seen in my lifetime. And I think this one I probably, as a fan, enjoyed the most, just because that 10-year gap made me appreciate
what was happening
so
before,
much more what was happening. Because think about it, we went on that run, the first run with Kobe and Shaq, which we didn't have as much, or at least I didn't have as much information about kind of their relationship and how that was going, because it was a little bit of a different era. So I thought that was lasting forever. I thought that they were running off 7 championships with that group. Come to find out, they hate each other's guts, and then they had to go. And they reconciled later, and that was great. And then to see, I didn't think I'd ever enjoy something more, though, because I was Team Kobe, as I had my Mamba Out shirt on. I didn't think I'd enjoy anything as much as that first one after Shaq. That first one post Shaq that he got, we celebrated that one. That one was, I hated Shaq so much for all of that, and I still look at him a little bit sideways, but I softened on it a little bit. And to get the next one going back to back, but this one was different because of all of the different circumstances around it, doing it in the bubble with the pandemic, the tragic passing of Kobe, all of the social justice issues that the league has spoken up about. You mentioned having to go away from the family, and then you're having to do testing and all that. But remember, back when the players went into the bubble, this is a kind of a different time of thinking around COVID, and them probably being even more concerned about their family back home, because you just didn't know, and should we actually be leaving them? We will always remember this 2020 championship team and just this run, especially the amount of great basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Vogel getting hired. You got to think Tyronn Lue was foregone conclusion.
Right.
To be
I
the
was
head
mad
coach.
that night when they didn't get him.
Remember, he was in Vegas celebrating his birthday, and I think the Lakers had sent him a happy birthday cake.
They did.
Okay, so whatever went haywire there, I think he wanted, $10 million or whatever.
I think he wanted too much money for what they wanted.
And then he goes to the Clippers. But let's not forget who else came to coach besides Vogel. Jason Kidd. And remember, Jason Kidd, it was always out there that Jason Kidd would be the assistant coach, but the head coach, and would more guys gravitate to him, or would he be backstabbing?
Because he was also tight with LeBron.
He was tight with LeBron.
Respected him because of his game,
right? Yeah. And I will give LeBron props that the tough battles that he had against the Indiana Pacers when he played for the Heat, I think made it easier for Vogel to get on the same level because they always challenged LeBron. Even though LeBron always pulled it out, they always went to a couple game 6s and 7s. And so I think it all worked out, but there was definitely, I will say this, and whether it's the Lakers, the Warriors when they were winning, Cleveland or the Heat, even the football, like when the Patriots are winning all the time, or when you win a Super Bowl team, there's always drama to go with it.
Oh, yeah. Like it's never as easy as it looks.
It's never as easy as it looks.
No.
It never is. And that's what makes it worth it to some, to those guys. And that's why you see the jubilation afterwards. You see a Dwight Howard, I think he was on Snapchat or whatever he was on, and, pouring his, heart out that, you just never give up, because if there was ever a Hall of Fame player that was kind of pushed to the side or thrown out to sea, it was him. Mm-hmm. And for him to come to the Lakers and pretty much beg to be on the Lakers, he begged to get on there. Remember, because he came in for a workout. He promised him that he would be on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, him and Noah came in for those workouts, and people thought that they should sign Noah over him.
Right, and Dwight Howard was just coming off like back surgery, or was it like, remember he was having a butt operation or so, like a gluteus maximus injury.
He
had, weird. Dwight Howard has had
some of the strangest things happen
to him off the court ever. But he was rehabbing. He came in and had a decent workout, was in decent shape, and told him that he would, promise that he would be on the straight and narrow. It was like on a day-to-day type of contract. Yep. And here he is. He played a huge role. He helped, obviously, JaVale McGee with his defense. He came in and played whenever he could. And he became a team player, which Dwight has never been up until this point, a true team player, and truly meant it. So for a guy like that to win a championship, is part of the puzzle, part of the drama, part of the reason why teams like the Lakers, who aren't overly talented besides LeBron and AD, and beat teams that with more talent because of the chemistry, but then also, because of the coaching, the organization, the trust in each other, and they had to do it under some unideal or least ideal circumstances.
Now, there's so much to dive into with all of that, and we're going to come back to the Lakers in my final segment when we get to that, when we put some people on blast. But right now, I want to switch gears real quick.
Let's break that down.
And go from one franchise that's a glamour franchise in their sport that won a championship last night to another hated franchise in a different sport in the NFL, the Cowboys. So Dak Prescott yesterday, if you didn't see it, I do not recommend that you go seek it out. Like, I'm one that I don't even need to see the injuries the first time, let alone all the replays that they show of that stuff. It drives me nuts. I get a little squeamish. If you didn't hear, he get a compound fracture in his ankle. Foot was not going the right way, is the best way to put that. And obviously had been in a long contract battle negotiations with the team. He was franchise tagged, and then had been still seeking out that long-term deal, basically trying to get his quarterback market value, basically, and had been balling, had been playing very well.
Since he's been in the league.
Yeah, and has been, and I think that has outperformed expectations, especially as a passer. From what you saw, I never would have thought. And I watched him a lot. My wife's family is from Mississippi. A lot of them are Mississippi State fans. So I saw him a lot when he was in college. And I did not think that he was this good, but he has been great as a pro. He gets that injury last night. And the conversation on Twitter, I thought correctly, immediately was about players needing to get their money when they're due,
NFL players.
Especially in the NFL, and just what's going to happen going forward with him now that Jerry didn't pay him and all of that. So, like, to me, I want to speak for you. I will let you speak in a second. I feel fairly confident in saying that you're going to fall on the side of Dak should have got his money. But what is that like? To see that from a teammate point of view, to see, because you saw how the teammates reacted to that too. But what a tough moment for Dak Prescott getting carted off the field yesterday. Well,
I'm going to tell you, I have personal experience with that injury. That's pretty much what ended my career. So I felt, you talking about I feel your pain. I felt his pain, literally. And 6 surgeries later on my ankle, it's still, I have to wear a size higher in shoe. Mine happened, when we played the Jets. Oddly enough, it was like the best game I think I was playing ever in my career. My ex-wife was pregnant at the time, and I never have watched it. I turned the channel immediately when I saw, Dak, laying on the ground. oddly enough, my grandfather always told me, you walk off the field. I was limped and carried off the field, and then I got on the stretcher or whatever, the cart afterwards. How that is as a player, I'm going to tell you what Dak was thinking right there. I know what I was thinking. And quarterback's different than linebackers. Linebackers, when I played, if you're not Ray Lewis or Zach Thomas or Junior Seau, you're kind of like, I was a good player. If you look at, if there's, 32 teams and just say 64 linebackers, I was, obviously more than average, so I was
in the top half,
I was in the top
safely
half.
in there.
Right. But still, those are guys that they always are trying to turn over
right.
or draft a guy
especially
or whatever.
In NFL,
right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't at premium positions. But here's what I was thinking is, I was immediately thinking my career would never be the same again. And then first I was thinking, will I be able to walk again? Or be able to run again and do stuff like that. Started thinking about contracts. Started thinking about kids and everything. The end comes.
right
there.
When it comes,
that light at the end of the tunnel, or it starts to get dark, it goes from like lit in here to lights are about to be off and it's flickering. Right. Dak Prescott is thinking the same thing. He's probably thinking regret, disappointment. I guarantee he's angry at Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. He's angry at the Cowboys because he felt like he's done more. Look, he was a 4th round pick. Okay, he was a guy that was just a project to kind of sit back and let Tony Romo play for 4 more years.
Right.
He pretty much sent Tony Romo to the booth right now.
Yeah.
Granted, Tony Romo's getting like 10, 17.
Is Tony Romo making more money than Dak Prescott now?
Almost.
I can just tell you, it has to be close. With the franchise tag, it might be close. It's got to be close.
And he's got Skechers and all this other stuff. I see Tony Romo everywhere. So it's probably even Steven. Plus, he's not, putting his body in physical harm way.
Right.
So from a player perspective, what he's thinking, he's got a ton of things going through his mind. And you got to think for him, we could talk about mental health all segment or all show because, he just lost his brother in the offseason. COVID. And let's even take it forward, even to last year, right? Where Jerry Jones pretty much told him, you better be a good soldier if you want to be Cowboys quarterback. Mm-hmm. You better not kneel. Yep. You better pretty much come out and toe the company line. And people drug Dak Prescott for that. Now, whether he truly felt that or not.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a big topic of conversation.
It was influenced heavily by Jerry Jones, right? So there's personal issues going on right there. Then from a teammate standpoint, I'm just going to tell you where you see a guy out there that's done everything he needed to do and then some. He's outperformed his contract. Mm-hmm. He's a great leader. He's tough as heck because it was a big deal when he didn't practice a couple days and then whether he was going to play, but he ended up playing last year. He's answered every bell that you'd want on the field and off the field. And what he's asking for compared to, let's just compare a quarterback on offense to your quarterback on defense. Dak Prescott asking for new money. Sean Lee keeps getting re-upped or redone every 2 or 3 years, and he hasn't been able to finish the season. I don't know how long.
Yeah, it feels like
if I'm looking at these two things right here, right? Dak Prescott, our quarterback, who's performing like a top 10 quarterback. Nobody can tell you that he's not, right? And other guys that have gotten paid, that makes you look at that Cowboys organization is done.
Yeah,
they are done from an internal standpoint, and it's not even about just Dak. This has been going on for a long time,
right?
So then guys are going to start questioning Jerry Jones. They're going to start doing it now. From Dak, from a contract standpoint, if there's ever a time to get hurt, that's the best time to get hurt earlier in the season. In my case, I got hurt late in the season because now you got all season to rehab.
Yeah,
and then he'll be ready when free agency comes. It's a compound break.
He's had 6 surgeries.
Yeah, but
you casually dropped that in there. Like,
but I had compound and I tore all the ligaments.
Okay,
so if he didn't tear any ligaments, it's just like they reset the ankle. I'm saying this, just.
It always. I say you say it casually because it's always crazy to me how football players just describe injuries as if they're. Like,
I'd rather break a leg versus tear ligaments any day of the week.
Is it because the thought process behind the bone
will heal up, right?
To heal
the
up
ligaments is like you just never know. I knew a guy that in Buffalo that tore his ACL, kneeled down in church after doing rehab for 5 months. ACL popped. 5 months of rehab, kneeling down in church, ACL popped. So if he just has a compound, now granted, it'll take a little bit, while to come back, but he'll be fine by next year. Mm-hmm. And, the Dallas will either have to franchise him, trade him, or he'll be a free agent. There's somebody out there that'll give him a contract. Granted, they'll have, injury preventions in there, but I don't have a doubt in my mind that he'll be able to come back and still be the same quarterback. Who knows where he'd be, will be. But I can guarantee he ain't playing another down for the Cowboys without a long-term contract of some sort.
Yeah, he'll have to, and I think that he would be justified in that. But I think that, something key about how I think that this will mess up their locker room because they already weren't very good.
No.
Then you have
a lot of guys
Mike
overpaid.
McCarthy situation where for some reason – and I don't know, like maybe Aaron Rodgers was just so great that he made him look like a good coach. And if that's the case, in that now you're going to not have your star quarterback and he's going to have to coach even harder and even more to get those guys ready, that could go sideways on them.
Sideways. Then you got Mike Nolan with that defense. The last 3 years he was in Atlanta, they finished last, third to last, and second to last. You a bottom feeder, D coordinator, and you just chilled for 3 years, and you guys were up in Wisconsin breaking down film, and now you're the defensive coordinator with all those first-round picks and high-dollar guys on the front line. All your linebackers are good, decent at the corner with young guys. You just drafted Diggs out of Alabama as a corner, and you're trying to tell me you can't stop a nosebleed? He's got to go.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, but the problem is I think will be an issue that Dallas has had since what? Well, really, since Jimmy Johnson, even when they were winning, the issue is always Jerry.
Jerry Jones.
It's always
and
Jerry.
Stephen Jones is even worse.
Right. The thing that makes the Dallas Cowboys such a big franchise is the same thing that holds them back. It's Jerry Jones.
Right.
It really is. And it's kind of crazy because he won't get out of the way enough. Because I feel like I always think this about Jerry Jones. I feel like he is just enough of a football guy to think that he knows even more
than the guys he hired.
Than the guys that he hired, which ends up being a problem.
And he'll never hire. I mean, Bill Parcells was there. Mm-hmm. He built up that team with talent-wise, and he ran him out of there.
Right. Is that when they had Quincy Carter at quarterback?
Well, Bledsoe or Parcells had brought in Bledsoe, but their lines were good. They had good players, and they had a good culture. You got to think, Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator, and Jerry Jones couldn't even get him to come back.
Right.
When he had a house in Dallas, or maybe has a house in Dallas. You can't even get your neighbor to come and coach because they know.
Because they know too much. They know that Jerry
is the owner, GM, the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator.
He might take a snap.
He might, if he could, he'll be a special teams coordinator. I think that he'll get. What was the kicker down there that was from Nebraska? He was coming down there and saying you need to kick the ball. He's just way too involved, and it's funny. As I'm thinking about owners, I'm thinking about, when I was a rookie and Ralph Wilson, who was a, pioneer, of the NFL, him and Al Davis, he was our owner. He would show up. Well, we saw him a few times. He'd come and talk to us at the beginning of training camp. We always see him at the Christmas party because he would be cutting a rug, right? old dude out there getting busy. But the funny thing about it, I remember it's like the day we were practicing. And he had a private jet, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, and he would leave from training camp and go to his house in Florida. But he would kind of circle, and it wasn't like a quick circle, but you'd see him. He would kind of take off and circle and look, and then he'd be head up, and that was just kind of like his send off. Like, all right, I'll see you when you guys are winning. He never, at least to my knowledge, and I wasn't, when I was a rookie, and I was I was still working to stay on the team and all that, but it was an honor if he knew your name. Yeah. The first 2 times he came through the locker room, he just looked at me and said, shook his head, looked up, said, okay, that's Foreman. The next year he knew my name. Mm-hmm. But that's about all I've ever seen of Mr. Wilson. Jerry, he coming in there. I mean,
all the time. I'll never forget. Jerry Jones has his own radio show.
Right.
Like, it's amazing. Like, because I was like, now feels like, and it now was years ago before I did sports media, did like healthcare sales, and I used to travel for work. And I had to go down to Dallas to meet with a hospital. And I just wherever I go, I turn on the local sports talk. I'm like, is that Jerry Jones? Welcome back to the Jerry Jones Show. Right. I'm like, what are we doing?
After the game, they're not in the locker room interviewing players. They're waiting for Jerry to come down there.
So strange.
So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Dallas because, Mike McCarthy on paper is a winning coach. I think he's a good offensive coach. I think their defense is scheme is bad. I think the defensive coordinator needs to go. And so we'll see what happens and see how they go forward, or if they draft a quarterback. Because if they draft a quarterback and don't bring back Dak, even if they did like a 2 or 3 year deal that's guaranteed, not like something like Kirk Cousins got when he went to the Vikings, with player option, they could work it out, injuries and all the other stuff. If you draft a rookie quarterback with those guys that you have on that team, you're not pushing reset, but you're almost there. You're kind of like
signaling that
it's coming. And Jerry's too old for that.
Right. He wants to win again. And that's what's also driving all the kind of the manic moves is that he wants to win, out of desperation. Yeah. It's just crazy what's happening down there. And it's going to be a huge story once we get to the offseason to see what kind of goes on with that. But I want to wrap today's show, kind of like we always do, if you're new to the pod, with one of our favorite segments, Put Them on Blast. So each week we kind of go through and we talk about somebody that deserves to be put on blast for something that they did or said. I'm going to kick us off this week. I kind of I have to, right? Like, people would be surprised
if you up here, you dripped out in purple and gold.
Yeah, I mean, you would be surprised.
You dog, you ain't got the purple and gold draws on, do you? With the gold boots. Okay.
No, not this time.
Come in here stepping.
No, I won't. My dad, my uncle will kill me. Sickness in the family. I got to put the haters on blast.
Let's break that down.
Like, just everybody, just the haters. So I was actually, I played this clip for my wife earlier where it's like a 3-minute long clip of all these different pundits or what have you. Talking about these different things with the Lakers. And there's one at the very beginning of the clip that I might not ever forget, where Rob Parker said that LeBron James was trying to be a 6'8" Kevin Hart. And that was the only reason that he came to L.A. is because he wanted to make movies, and that's all that he wanted to do. And so, and people, and it's weird because I always had these conversations where some people are like, oh, well, they were actually the favorites. Like, people picked them. What do you mean? And it's like, well, yes and no. Vegas had them as a favorite pretty much wire to wire. Vegas knew something that everybody else didn't know. But think about all of the talk about the Clippers.
The Clippers
that Clippers thing was real, and I could put together a 5-minute clip of just all of the people talking about the Clippers and how they had Kawhi and way off P, and how who was going to guard those guys. Well, it turned out themselves. They were going to guard. It was self-check out there because once we got to crunch time in the playoffs, they were nowhere to be found. Right. When they get to the playoffs, after they get past the seeding games, well, actually in the seeding games, they struggled, the Lakers did, because they already had the number 1 seed wrapped up. And so they just didn't play all that well because there was nothing to play for. And now they're vulnerable. So you get to that, I'm laughing, you get to the playoffs, and now the Portland Trailblazers, who were hot going into that because they had to be, were the greatest 8 seed in the history of the NBA. Right. Got them up out of here in 5 games. So then it's Houston. They're a weird matchup. Who's going to guard James Harden? There was a thing.
And Houston had beat them during the regular season.
Yeah, they had beat them once because Houston is one of those teams, though, where they're going to have a game where they hit a whole bunch of threes because they take a bunch of them, and they're going to beat you because
you just don't feel like running around chasing little guards all night.
You just don't feel like doing it. And there was, and now I wish I had it pulled up, but there was an NBA guy that said that Harden was going to play Anthony Davis off the court the same way that he did Rudy Gobert in the first round. Got them up out of here. Also, after James Harden said that it didn't matter about the Lakers being tall or not, and that you got to have that heart. Right. I guess AD had that heart. And 1, 2, 3 Cancun, Houston, get on up out of here. So then we get to Denver, and Denver is a team that I don't really feel one way or the other about Denver. Like, people don't really spend time thinking about Denver, and I kind of like their young pieces. They have some nice guys, but it was okay. Here's the arrival of Jokic, right?
Right.
AD shut that down. They got a game. They played with heart. They were kind of like, it kind of reminded, they were kind of like a light version of the Heat.
Miami Heat. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what they were.
And then you get to the Heat. In the Heat, I will not say anything bad about the Heat outside of maybe Tyler Herro, who did that little snarl and then he got dunked all over. But whatever. He's a rookie. He's only 20 years old. He got swag. I'm okay with that.
2 years ago, he was in high school.
Yeah, I can kind of let that one go.
Going to the little Sadie Hawkins dance or whatever.
Right. I can let it go. And like I said, nothing but respect for them. Pat Riley, the architect of all of that, obviously obviously a Laker legend in his own right. I wanted him to come back and run the team when kind of all that turmoil was going on. And so it wasn't so much about them in this finals as much as it felt to me that there were just a lot of people, right or wrong, that were at the final stage of it just rooting against the Lakers because they wanted the whole thing to fall apart and us to not have this moment where they were back on top, because people really hate the Lakers.
They hate the Lakers.
Like
they really hate on LeBron. You need to put a fan poll out there between Rod Parker, who's the biggest LeBron hater, Rod Parker, in the field, Skip Bayless.
Bill Simmons has had some real bad ones, but he's just
those two. If you could do a poll out there, on you do Twitter polls, that would be good. And you know what else? I've just made a decision now that I had the Michael Irvin video pinned on my Twitter. Yep. Your pin. Yeah. It must be like that's your favorite video.
Yep.
The new one is when Stephen A. Smith was going off when the Nuggets were coming back to win for down 3-1, and he went off for like 2 minutes straight. So I'm going to pin that just because he said LeBron is waiting, AD is waiting, and LeBron ain't hurt this year, right?
Right.
So. Hey, and he's almost a kind of quasi LeBron hater too, because he's a Jordan.
Moments. Like I feel like Stephen A. is somebody that he wants to jump on and off of people's bandwagon, so that he can go hard at somebody for the sake of going hard.
Because he was big on KD, and then I think reality hit. But the haters, I always look at it like this, like with the only thing I compare LeBron / whoever LeBron is with, that is the team in the NBA, right? So whether it's the Cavaliers, Heat, or the Lakers, I compare it to like the Patriots. You know what I'm saying? Do the Patriots, if they bent the rules, you damn right they did. Did they get caught a couple times? Yeah. Did they do anything else that I haven't seen other teams do? No. They just were better at it.
Right.
But one thing I can respect about them is they win.
Right, you still have to go win.
You still got to go win,
right.
And they do everything you need to do win. And I'm gonna tell you, every time I play against the Patriots, you better be strapped up. That's gonna be a physical game, right? And they're gonna mentally tax you. So, the hate when the moral of the story is when people are hating you just because you're the Lakers or you're the Patriots or whatever, you're doing something good. You're actually doing something great.
Right.
You're doing stuff that nobody else is willing to do. And so that's the good thing about the haters. Now, who I'm going to put on blast is a football team / coach that I have family history with. Growing up, my dad should be a Hall of Fame NFL player. He's not there yet, so we need to get him in before he kicks the bucket.
Get him in there.
The Minnesota Vikings. So I grew up a Vikings fan. Grew up actually a Redskins fan because we were from out east, but obviously I have to be a Vikings fan. So even when I played, I always kept an eye on the Vikings. But ever since they signed Kirk Cousins, ever since they've been drafting Christian Ponder, X, Y, and Z, they have done nothing but shoot themselves in the foot, and it came all full circle last night on Sunday Night Football. And I love Mike Zimmer as a coach.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
He's a great coach.
He's one of the guys I wish I could have played for. But Mike Zimmer, I got to put you on blast, homeboy.
Happens to the best.
Right, happened to the best of them. You are 4th and 1 on the road, and your season is, you're hanging on to your season by like a thin line. You're on life support, and you're 4th and 1 on the road, up by 5, and you decide to go with, yes, albeit the running back, Delvin Cook was out. The backup running back is really good, and he missed the hole that was me and you could have got a yard through, right?
Right.
But the smart play is to kick the field goal, go up by 8. So at the end of the day, no matter what, you're defending against a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Right. The Vikings went for it, got stuffed by Seattle defense that had been giving up. They're last in the league and giving up yards. The Vikings have been running up and down the field. But one thing about 4th and 1, they know what you're going to do.
Right.
Right. And so Russell Wilson trots his little pretty self out there on the field.
Here he comes.
Here he comes. Play action. Get a penalty. Throw it deep to DK Metcalf. Next thing you know, he rolls out on 3rd down. Dagger in the heart. 13 seconds left. Now that's a long flight. from Seattle to Minneapolis.
Some hurt feelings on that
some
plane.
hurt feelings, and you just lost, and your season is pretty much over. Now you got to coach the rest of the season during the pandemic, during COVID, knowing that you're thinking like, all right, man, who are we going to draft come next year? Right. And you got some good veteran players, have a really good young receiver, really good running back. I'm still not sold on the quarterback. Defense is still decent and good, and the defense played really, really good last night. So you took all the confidence that you could have gained with those young players, mixed in with those veteran players to move on to continue maybe like a winning streak. That coaching decision and the obviously Monday quarterback would tell you should have kicked the field goal. All went down the drain with that, and it's something that those are defining moments and decisions during the season with organizations that have been winning and going to playoffs and needed to do well, that could really send your season down the toilet drain. So I have to call out my man Mike Zimmer. I love Mike Zimmer as a coach and as a human, but I think that it came full circle with that the GM's drafting, the way that the organization has been going, from Christian Ponder and so forth and so on.
Terrible Kirk Cousins.
Terrible Kirk Cousins. The king of the B movies. He's not even king of the B movies. He's the king of the independents now, right? He's been up there stealing. I've never seen. But the one thing I will say about Kirk Cousins, though, there used to be a thing like when you see guys in the locker room that don't play well, and they be like, man, he going in there with a mask on. Kirk Cousins going up there getting his check without a mask. He letting you know I'm here, I'm stealing.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Yeah, you
like
giving it to
clearing.
me. You say, don't worry, you don't need no cameras. I'm letting you know when I'm coming, when I'm going to be there, and when I'm going to cash my check. And for whatever reason, they still keep giving this man money. He can't play dead. He can't. Straight up. I mean, he'll have a couple games where he's good, or whatever. And I know last season was probably his best season. And he played. It's like a big deal if Kirk Cousins doesn't lose you a game.
Right. People act like he's amazing if he doesn't lose them a game.
Oh, he threw for 200 yards and a touchdown. He finally stepped up in a big game. If I'm paying you $30-some million, you got to think.
It's the baseline.
I want. This is what we should look at: what he makes versus what Tom Brady essentially had to call Tampa Bay up and get paid.
Right.
Straight up, the greatest of all time. I don't care if Tom Brady's 50 years old. He better than Kirk Cousins any day of the week.
Right.
And you up here paying this man like he's a top 5 quarterback and he a bottom 5. It's the weirdest thing to me that how the NFL does stuff with quarterbacks and it affects your whole organization.
Right.
It'll literally blow up your whole organization, and sometimes you just never recover. Never recover. So be it. And my Vikings, and you know what? I know that you're a Lakers fan. I'm a Lakers fan. So, the Lakers started in Minneapolis, though, with my man George Michael.
They did.
Oh, big number 99.
You got extra ties to him.
Right, yeah, I knew about that. Well, I used to hate because we used to have to do the George Michael drill in basketball tryouts, minutes straight. So that's why I had to put Mike Zimmer and the Vikings on blast. Hopefully this will be the last. And you're not going down there like Bill O'Brien in the Houston Texans.
Yeah, hopefully they don't go that route. But that's going to do it for us this week. Subscribe to the podcast everywhere you can listen to them. Rate us, review us, leave us a 5-star review. If you leave 5, I'm inclined to think that you're a hater. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts on the Hail Varsity Network, the Mind Your Own podcast, Varsity Club, More to It, and the Hail Varsity Radio Show. We now have an email address. You can email us if you would like to get in touch with the show at straightupbreakdown@hailvarsity.com. That is straightupbreakdown@hailvarsity.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at Greg Smith HV or at Foreman5644.
Yep.
There we go.
Unless it changes.
Unless it changes to I love LeBron 24. We will catch you next time.